Now, up next, a very important and vital uh, in-between case. The case that I've been meaning to cover for some time. A number of you have brought up as well. This is none other than the trial of Letecia Stauch, who was accused and is now in the process of being convicted for killing her own stepson, 11-year-old Gannon Stauch. There are some very interesting elements to this case and other issues that truly need to be looked at and addressed. So look forward to that. Be sure to like and also share your views, as we're going to very soon now be entering into the Lori and Chad Daybell homicide case, exploring the extensive background of what brought it about and who is involved. Thank you again. That's up next, right here on JTC.
The entire time, after seeing what actually physically ends up happening to Stauch. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. On Monday, the family of Gannon Stauch and communities stretching from Colorado Springs to Horry County received the news no one wished to hear that night. At a news conference in El Paso County, Colorado, law enforcement announced the arrest of Gannon Stauch's stepmother, Letecia Stauch. She has been charged with murder. Gannon's body was not recovered or found as of yet. Stauch was arrested without incident in Myrtle Beach, according to Corporal Thomas Vest. I don't really have statements at this time to add to this horrible tragedy. Again, it is a multi-agency investigation, and this morning's operation did involve our officers from our department, as well as officers from the Sheriff's Office out of El Paso County. Vest stated, last January, the Stauchs sold their Carolina Forest home. The Horry County School District says that Letecia Stauch had worked in the schools from November 2010 until June 2015. She spent some time working as a paraprofessional, paralegal, and eventually acquired a special education as a teacher. Lisa Borsier, the HCS spokesperson, stated Stauch resigned from the school where she had been teaching since that time. ABC 15 spoke with Letecia Stauch in 2015 to relate to the story regarding Ride 3 and what neighbors in Carolina Forest wanted to see in their area. More public records have shown that Stauch had attempted to work in the Marion County School District. She was a teacher at Marion County Schools, and her certification was suspended in May of 2016. She also breached her contract by abandoning her teaching duties with the district 7 days after employment. She worked at Palmetto Middle School as a social studies teacher for the 2015 to 2016 school year. And here's more of that specific affidavit to look at here for a moment. It really defies belief that no one, had a real handle on the situation, handle on Letecia Stauch's overall history, the background of this person and so on. There's some real red flags that had, been cleared to the Board of Examiners, and I mean, a lot of people saw certain things that were going on here. The South Carolina State Board of Education considered this matter on May 11th, 2016. The South Carolina Department of Education notified Letecia Stauch of her right to a fair hearing regarding the possible suspension of her South Carolina education certificates. In a certified letter that was sent on October 29, 2015, Ms. Stauch requested a hearing, and a hearing was held on March 28, 2016. The hearing connected Ms. Stauch's breach of contract and abandoning her teaching duties in the Marion County School District. After considering the evidence presented, the State Board of Examiners voted to suspend Mrs. Stauch's education certificate for a period of 180 days. So it was obvious that this is someone who should not have been in any way certified to be teaching state education, in all these different areas of any kind of education at school, to be honest. The State Board has jurisdiction in the matter pursuant to South Carolina Code 59-25-150 and Code 59-25-160. Mrs. Stauch holds a valid South Carolina educator certificate and was employed in Palmetto Middle School as a social studies teacher for that current year. So it's really something, Just to ponder that really no one was paying very close attention to this. Something else. She went to work for the professional development, and then in the first 2 days, she didn't come back. When school officials tried to contact Letecia, she stated she left because she experienced harassment and alleged retaliation after requesting to be released from the contract due to a military move. She alleged that the district superintendent and the niece was her husband's ex-wife, and the harassment and retaliation were due to the relationship. She threatened to file an EEOC claim. It was investigated. Letecia will remain in Myrtle Beach County Jail until she is extradited to face charges. So it's very interesting. Just all of the key issues around what happened. It's just fascinating to examine again.
Your dedicated Cintas service reps help make sure your team has the essential products they need to help keep them looking great, feeling confident, and ready to be their best. Get Cintas and get ready for the workday.
Sorry, you can't really skip the ads on some of these
Gannon Stauch, the 11-year-old from Colorado who once called Horry County home.
press reports, but this is vital issue.
Stepmother, there she is. She's in jail tonight, charged with murder. And we're learning more about her. In fact, we've spoken to her on camera in the past.
ABC 15's Andrew James went to Carolina Forest, where Stauch once lived. Andrew, what did you learn today?
Well, Summer, we know the Stauchs now call Colorado Springs home. The home in Myrtle Beach recently sold. Neighbors could not recognize them, but shared the sadness shown today by law enforcement as well as family members.
What's amazing is no one really caught
Never thought I'd be standing
these
here.
very clear
Now the news no one wanted to hear.
red flag
Sadly,
warning signs.
we do not believe Gannon is alive.
Around some of the people there
believe his stepmother,
who were
Letecia
teaching
Stauch,
and
had something to do
a
with
lot
the
of
child's
things that were going
disappearance.
on with that
Stauch
whole,
was arrested in Myrtle Beach.
that
I
whole
don't really have
town.
any statements at
It's
this time
interesting
to add.
to see it
Again,
really
it's a multi-agency investigation. This morning's operation did involve
up close.
officers with our department as well as officers with the Sheriff's Office from El Paso County.
County records show the Stauchs sold their Myrtle Beach home last year. I combed the block, asking neighbors about her. No one seemed to know this former neighbor, but we have learned Stauch worked here from 2010 to 2015 in the Horry County school system. This is a story we actually interviewed her for in 2015 about Highway 501.
It would be nice to have an overpass for 501.
A 2016 state suspension order led to Stauch's education license being revoked after not reporting to class in the Marion County school system. Colorado records show she had just been approved for a teacher's license last March. Now, behind bars, Gannon's mother sharing her emotional message to Letecia.
Justice will be served, and I'll make sure that justice is served, because my boy did not deserve any of this that has happened to him.
I also reached out to Gannon's uncle who lives locally. He did not want to talk, nor did members of the church that held a prayer vigil last month for Gannon over in Loris. They did tell me, though, that they are continuously praying for the family as the search for Gannon's body is still ongoing.
All right, Andrew, thank you for that report. We did ask Myrtle Beach police where Stauch was arrested. They couldn't tell us that. Stauch is expected to be taken back to Colorado, but will face a judge tomorrow for a bond hearing. We will be in court.
Yeah. So something really substantial. It's just it's amazing to see this. Of the official trial, not too much, but some of the key points. One of the things that has really been at issue with the case of Gannon and Letecia Stauch is I've always felt that there was something more tied into it. And it turns out that there's a set of homicides that may in fact turn out being tied to Letecia Stauch. So it says Gannon Stauch disappeared from his family's Colorado Springs home on January 27th, 2020. His stepmother Letecia was the last person to see him. It is alleged that she murdered Gannon in his bedroom while the two were alone. Reporter Colette Bordelon has been covering the hearing, and some horrific details came out. He says there were several injuries, including a fractured skull, gunshot wound, 2 stab wounds, and what appeared to be defensive wounds. The gunshot wound was to Gannon's lower left jaw area. There was a projectile recovered from his skull. That was sent to the El Paso County Sheriff. During the x-ray, 2 projectiles were found in a pillow. Sergeant Yoder also said that he attended the autopsy. He stated the body was decomposed in a severe fashion, wrapped in blankets which were soiled with clothing. The body was in the fetal position. Dr. Susan Ignacio, the forensic pathologist, performed the autopsy. Sergeant Yoder learned it was the body of Gannon Stauch through the DNA analysis. However, Dr. Ignacio noted the injuries discussed, and she noted 1 gunshot wound, including a skull fracture, with 18 sharp force wounds. So this sounds, pardon my pun here, but this sounds a little too broken to be believed. Right, as though it could not have originally only been Letecia Stauch who did all of this. It just sounds almost unbelievable that one actual person, just one, could do all of this damage to an 11-year-old child when you think about it, in reality. And so it says Gannon's body was allegedly placed in a suitcase by Letecia and appeared to have been in the suitcase for some time. The autopsy found a bullet there. 2 bullets were also discovered in a pillow that was with him in the suitcase. In Gannon's bedroom, investigators found evidence of blood splatter on the wall and bloodstains on the mattress, carpet, and bedroom floor areas. Authorities found traces of Gannon Stauch's blood on the family garage floor and on the bumper of Stauch's car. On the day Gannon disappeared, Stauch asked her then teenage daughter, to stop by a store and buy the carpet cleaning supplies, baking soda, and trash bags at 5 p.m. Letecia, however, declined to be present at the preliminary hearing and allowed proceedings to go ahead. She appeared briefly via video link, and she had confidence in her counsel and did not wish to appear in person. We knew before this week that Gannon Stauch's death was violent, but we learned more sad details that were quite shocking after the hearing took place. A bullet was found in Gannon's head, and 2 more recovered from the pillowcase near the area under the neck. A weapons expert determined the bullets matched the type of ammunition that's only used in a gun found on the nightstand of Stauch's room. Sergeant Rosario Hubble of the El Paso County Sheriff stated again, the gun that had Stauch's alleged DNA on it, but also the DNA of 2 other people, was quite surprising. On the morning investigators believed Gannon was killed, Stauch took 2 photos of him laying in the bed. Hubble stated that the bed for the photos, or the bedding, appeared to be the same as the bedding found with Gannon's actual body when it was recovered inside the suitcase. Investigators discovered the blood stain was on Gannon Stauch's bed. and the blood spatter on the wall nearby with a large blood stain on the floor covered that area of the entrance. The carpet itself appeared to have been cleaned meticulously, but the concrete underneath the carpet was actually stained with something. DNA analysis conducted on the blood samples linked them directly to Gannon Stauch again, and some of Gannon's blood was found on Stauch's shoe. Another law enforcement official, Kevin Clark, walked through the location that showed Letecia Stauch drove to Florida shortly after Gannon went missing and stayed in a hotel just 3 miles from where the body was found. A firearms expert believes the gun found on the nightstand was used to shoot Gannon at least twice because the bullet found in his head was consistent with the ammunition used. This is a developing story. So what's really just, still beyond belief is, right, did one person really do all of this and shoot this child at least 3 or 4 times? Or is it more than likely some of these alleged problematic people, helped Letecia Stauch to kill the child? Because when you think about it, what was really on the cameras? Did we ever see everything that was truly, on the actual live feed and on the video cameras? Because again, there were multiple bullets, they're saying, that were found in the area of his arm, in other parts of his body. His skull was fractured from being tossed on the ground. It just, it is either that Letecia Stauch had suddenly gained super prominence powers or something. Or perhaps one of these people, shot at Gannon Stauch, or one of these people probably hit him with a very sharp object or something and helped in this murder. In any case, it's very difficult to tell, and the trial is ongoing. It's a highly interesting trial. It just seems to defy all logic or belief that Letecia Stauch, that she really did every single thing that was found on this body, because it would take a supreme amount of force to do these types of things. So you wondered, did she have somebody come in and just run him over, or beat him up against a wall or something with gloves on or something, and then flee the scene? Because there was the 3 kind of suspect killers that were found later in the same county. So I don't rule it out, certainly, based on the autopsy, that maybe she had somebody help, get this kid essentially killed, and then she finished him off. But it's going to be very interesting. And we'll take a look at the trial.
Why would it not be feasible to wear a body-worn camera?
Well, number one, we're in undercover capacity. We don't want other people to see. Basically, I don't want anyone to know my detectives and who they are, what they look like, or anything else. Certainly, body-worn camera evidence is discoverable, and that could potentially put my detectives' lives in danger that are working significant undercover operations involving criminal. We purposely hide our detectives' identity to the point to where they have different names and everything.
In terms of how obvious it would be to have a camera in the center of your chest, would that also be an issue as well?
Well, if we were wearing a camera, it would probably burn us, if you want to call it that. I think people would realize we were the police really quickly, and majority of our job is done behind the scenes, and people don't know that we're there. So.
Yeah, but it makes us wonder, where is all the true physical video surveillance footage when this occurred? Or at least some of it. Right? Yeah, that's something we really, all of us, desire to see. If there's some more that exists. No question. So, that's a key element, yeah.
Dr. Kelly, if you would step forward and raise your right hand for the sir. Yes, swear affirm the testimony about giving this man will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Wouldn't have a seat in the witness
You know,
stand.
she was
That's
just
what
a
she said.
teacher
She said,
and allegedly a teaching assistant as well. She got into trouble a lot,
Good afternoon, Dr.
according to the
Kelly.
affidavit.
Good afternoon. Will you please introduce yourself?
But
to
it
our
defies
explain
belief
for
that she
record?
could be a
I am Dr. Leon Kelly,
possibly be a super killer.
L-E-O-N-E-E-L-L-Y.
It's a very, very
Dr.
key
Kelly,
question.
what is your occupation?
I am the El Paso County Coroner and Chief Medical Examiner.
How long have you been in that type of a role?
I've been with the Coroner's Office since 2008 as the Deputy Chief until 2018, which I was elected as the Coroner and Chief Medical Examiner, and then I was re-elected in 2022.
Can you tell the jury about your education that allows you to do that job?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Biology from Indiana University. I have a medical degree from Indiana University School of Medicine. Following that, I completed 4 years in training in anatomic and clinical pathology at Penrose St. Francis here in Colorado Springs. And then following that, I completed a 1-year fellowship in forensic pathology at the University of Texas in Dallas. So I'm board certified in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and forensic pathology.
His eyes sure are darting around a lot for being the quote-unquote expert of the year.
I do.
For
Can you tell
sure.
the jury about that, please?
Board certified in
kinda-
anatomic, clinical, and
Kind of noticed that a
pathology.
bit too.
Any professional memberships?
Yes, I'm a member of the National Association of Medical Examiners, the College of American Pathologists, and the American Society of Clinical Pathology.
Marion
What about
County.
publications? Have you published any?
This took place in
journals or
Marion
anything
County.
Like that, as it relates to pathology or any of your job duties?
I've published papers of posters as well on various types of deaths in forensic setting.
Have you ever testified as a court-qualified expert witness?
I have.
In what areas?
Forensic pathology, strangulation, many forensic sciences.
What courts have you testified as an expert in?
Multiple courts in Colorado, including El Paso County, as well as courts in South Dakota, California, Ohio, Texas.
Okay. At this time, I would move to have Dr. Kelly qualified as an expert in forensic pathology.
No objection. The witness will be so qualified.
And just so we're all on the same page, Doctor, when we say the word pathology, what do we mean on that?
Pathology is a field of medicine defined essentially as the study of disease or injury.
And then what about forensic pathology?
Forensic pathology is a subset of pathology that deals specifically with deaths that occur in individuals suddenly, unexpectedly, or of anything non-natural. And so it's a field focused specifically on determining cause and manner of death in individuals who've died under those suspicious or injurious circumstances.
Doctor, back in January of 2020, what was your role then as far as, I guess just what was your role back then?
January 2020, I was the elected coroner and chief medical examiner for El Paso County.
Did you get involved in the criminal investigation of the Gannon Stauch murder?
I did.
Can you tell the jury how that happened, how you got involved in that?
There were human remains discovered in Florida. There was a tentative identification as to who that individual was, but not a positive scientific identification. To date, when I became involved, they weren't yet able to definitively identify the individual as Gannon Stauch. And so I was contacted by our local district attorney's office and asked if I could help identify him. And so the medical examiner's office there in Florida had yet to be able to accomplish that. And I've had good luck and experience in identifying individuals who had been deceased for a long time. So I said, yes, let's bring the remains, or at least portion of the remains, to El Paso County, and we will do our best to identify him.
What were complicating factors leading to this difficulty that you just described to get a DNA confirmation?
The remains had advanced decomposition, so the body had begun to break down. To make scientific identification, generally we talk about two things. Dental, which is you look at the teeth, you x-ray them, and then you have to have radiographs or x-rays from that individual that you think it is at a dentist that they went to when they were alive. The other way to identify individuals is through DNA. As the body breaks down, the cells that have the DNA, the material that we need to identify, begins to dissolve. And it becomes very difficult to use traditional DNA techniques to get enough of that material that's still intact to identify them. And so, living in the mountains, in a place where people often go missing or not found for sometimes many years, we've grown skilled in being able to identify individuals who have that degree of decomposition or
Good afternoon, Ms. Williams. Sorry, Your Honor.
That's fine.
Would you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Marissa Williams.
And where are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
For approximately 11 years.
And in 2020, what was the nature of your roles and responsibility with El Paso County Sheriff's Office?
I was assigned to the Investigations Division as a detective.
And as it relates to your work, in this case, fair to say that you were the jack of all trades?
Yes, although primarily handled financial responsibilities.
Okay. In terms of obtaining financial responsibilities, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes. I initially took interest in, tracking the financial records of the Stauches to determine what type of activity they had been taking part in during the time that Gannon went missing.
And so, as part of that, would you have been involved in applications for search warrants, things like that?
That's correct.
Did you also have observations of other law enforcement officers collecting evidence, for example?
Yes, ma'am. There were other officers and investigators, both with the DA's office and the FBI, assisting the El Paso County Sheriff's Office in collecting the type of records I was collecting as well.
Okay. And I'll direct your attention to January 28th of 2020. Were you on duty that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you present for an interview, or at least a portion of an interview that occurred that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Where was that?
The interview was at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. I observed Detective Mark Riley interviewing Eugene Al Stauch.
Okay. And for other interviews that may have been conducted with Letecia Stauch, were you present for any of those?
I was present, but I did not observe the full interviews.
Okay. I will direct your attention to observations of Letecia Stauch. Did you see her in person?
Yes, I did meet her in person.
Okay. And is there a particular date you recall seeing her in person?
Yes, it was Wednesday, January 29th at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. And on that date, can you generally describe her demeanor? How would you describe her demeanor?
She was evasive with questions. She was, I would say, upset, but not in the same way that you would expect with a parent that's missing a child.
I'll sustain the objection on the different grounds. I think she needs to lay a little bit more foundation as to her experience regarding contacts with parents of missing children.
And again, you can read that she's going to be basing it on an observation or opinion on her work experience. I'm objecting others to it.
All right, and under People versus Frower, 373 Pacific 3rd, 672 Colorado Appellate 2015, I don't think that the Stewart standard regarding accident reconstructionist applies. This doesn't involve specialized training. This does involve her experience regarding contacts with other individuals who may have been similarly situated. The objection is overruled.
In terms of your experience in law enforcement over the years, have you had contact with a variety of suspects, a person of interest, that sort of thing?
Yes, I have, probably hundreds.
Have you been exposed to parents of missing children as well?
Yes.
Parents of runaways?
Yes.
And in terms of your training experience, specifically as it relates to being around parents of missing children, how would you describe the defendant's demeanor on January 29th of 2020?
My experience with parents of missing children or runaways comes from having worked on patrol during the years of 2014 through 2018. And most parents are primarily concerned with doing something to track down their child, such as contacting friends, going out and searching for their child, or providing any type of evidence that would assist law enforcement in doing the same. But Ms. Stauch, on the other hand, was bothered by the fact that she had to come in and talk with law enforcement, and was more concerned about her well-being than her missing sons.
In terms of being present on scene, and again, based on your training experience as it relates to your role as a detective, but also on patrol, did it appear to you at that time that she was experiencing a severe mental disease, defect, or crisis?
Well, just as testimony in general as to these officers that they lack the proper foundation with this.
That's not lacking a proper foundation. So, well, and my question was always a similar one that a lot of you have had. Well, why didn't they ever treat this extremely serious case as a kidnapping case? Is it only because Letecia Stauch is the mother or stepmother of Gannon? Is that the reason, the so-called reason they came up with? I mean, still, they took this child who's 11 years old cross-border, right? Into another area of the state, and then allegedly even out of state. That should have been treated immediately as a kidnapping. Yeah. And then maybe today we would have real detailed answers. And I'm talking about detailed answers like camera footage and camera work around the exact time of the incident with Letecia, and maybe we would even have answers then of exactly who might have been there, who helped cover this up. Because I just, like a lot of you, I just can't see one woman, being Letecia Stauch, being capable of doing literally all of this unless she was really on a very, very specialized style of substance. There's no mistaking that.
I'm showing a police report. I want you to look at this last paragraph on the page and read through it and then tell me what you got.
This?
That paragraph, yes.
Yes.
Did that refresh your memory as to the last time you worked with Harley?
Yes.
What day was that?
The 29th.
Was that Wednesday, January 29th?
Yes.
What was, again, not asking you for any statements that Harley made to you, but what was Harley's demeanor like on that day?
She was a little frantic. Just not her usual self.
Do you remember telling the detective whether she was crying or not?
Yes.
And was she crying in your memory?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, were you with Harley and picked up Harley's mother from the hospital?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that. Again, whose car were you in?
We were in Harley's car.
Who was driving that vehicle?
Harley.
In what seat were you sitting in?
I was in the front seat.
What hospital did you go to pick up her mother?
I'm not sure the name, but it's somewhere around here in the downtown Spring area.
Memorial Hospital, does that sound correct?
I'm not sure.
That's okay. So, but you're just remembering it as a downtown hospital somewhere
Yes.
fairly close to where we are now?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe, as you're in the car with Harley, how she was acting then? Was she still acting like she was crying or upset?
No.
How was she acting now?
Just normal.
Okay. Do you remember talking to the detective about how she was acting?
In the car? Or?
Yes, while you're in the car with her at the hospital?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember the Harley's mother getting into the car with you?
Yes.
Did Harley's demeanor change when her mother got into the car with you all?
No.
Okay. Do you remember talking to the detective about her, about Harley acting timid and overwhelmed at that time?
Yes.
Was that different than when she was crying earlier?
Yes, she had kind of calmed down a bit in the car versus earlier when she was
So
crying.
she doesn't remember, she doesn't recall
When
most things,
When Harley's mother got
but
into
she
the
recalls
car,
that she was
I
in
may
a
have already asked you
frantic
this, so if I did,
state.
I apologize. Where did she get into the car?
In
It
the
just,
backseat.
Okay.
to this
So
day,
did
you
that
know,
mean that Harley's still driving? You're in
it
the
doesn't
front passenger
fully
seat and,
connect. It
mother
doesn't
is in the
fully
backseat?
add up.
What-
Yeah, she doesn't remember anything about what was happening, but she does remember that she was in a very panicked, frantic state.
I don't know. Can you still see it?
There's some kind of
I
disconnect
don't
here.
need you to be precise, but can you just point out the general area of where you live, and you can see this in Exhibit 4?
I'd be over here somewhere.
So for the record, you pointed to Mumford Drive in between Tarbell Drive?
Yeah, I'm on Decker, but the school's right here, and my house would be like over in the section kind of by it.
Okay, great. How long have you lived there?
2 years? No, I'm sorry. That's way off. 3.5, almost 4 years.
So you were living there back in January of 2020?
Yes.
And while you were living in that neighborhood, did you have an occasion to meet someone named Letecia Stauch?
I did.
And tell the jury about how you met her.
So I think the first time I had posted a thing on our neighborhood page, I was looking for clothes for my niece that just moved in with us. And I had got a message from a Harley Hunt, is who I thought I was speaking to. And then they offering some free clothes for us. And when the person actually showed up to my house to drop off those clothes, it was Letecia.
Okay. You talked about a neighborhood. How did you describe it? Is it a Facebook page?
Yeah, we have a lot of neighborhood like Facebook pages that are just for people in the neighborhood. I don't know if I put it on the residence page or like one of the for sale pages, but it's just everybody in the neighborhood.
And I know you're a little nervous, but only one of us can talk at a time.
Mm-hmm.
She's typing everything we're saying, believe it or not. And so if you could just wait until I'm done and I'll wait until you're done.
Okay.
We'll do the best we can.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So someone named Harley Hunt responds to your page. Is that what happens?
Yes. I assumed it was Harley Hunt.
And did you then make arrangements for them to come by your house?
Yeah, to come drop them off at my house.
Okay, so tell us about that. Did someone come by your house?
Yes, Letecia came by my house.
And what happened when she came to your house?
She knocked on the door. Initially, she was just supposed to leave them on the porch, but I ended up being at home. She knocked on the door, I opened it, she handed me the clothes, and we had a conversation.
And do you see Letecia Stauch in the courtroom today?
I do, yes.
Could you point her out and describe what she's wearing?
She's sitting at the end of that desk in a pinkish purple shirt.
Only female seated at the defense table?
Yes.
May the record reflect identification of Ms. Stauch subject to cross-examination.
The record will so reflect. Go ahead.
So what happened when the defendant came to your residence?
She came to the door, handed me the clothes, and then we just had a conversation. It was a little weird. I didn't know her. I had never met her before that. And I was kind of off-put first because I thought I was meeting a Harley Hunt. And it obviously wasn't, but she didn't introduce herself as to who she was. And it was just kind of weird because I didn't know her and she was kind of just talking to me about life stuff. And like we had been best friends. So it was a little off-putting, but...
Do you remember about when this may have happened?
It was right before Christmas. Probably December 20-something. It was before Christmas.
Wow, right before Christmas.
2019.
So right before the holidays.
December 2019?
Just wanted to say that in this little sign-off note here. Yeah. Can you imagine getting that kind of
And so,
holiday gift for
was there
Christmas?
anything unusual
about this
Really
initial contact? Other
something.
than it seemed like she was spilling her
There's
guts?
something else
No,
to
not
this
really.
case. Just
Did you
is
have more conversation with her?
quite
I did.
shocking. Very
She wrote me
shocking.
later on telling me she had forgot a pair of pants. That was just nothing. The next time was a couple days later on Christmas. She had sent me another message.
And what was that message about? Do you recall?
Yeah, she said that she was going on a work trip, that she worked for an airline, and she needed to go to a training.
She worked for an
And
airline.
had asked if my
Huh.
teenage niece wanted to go over and
She needed to
basically watch
babysit
the house,
somebody.
but also hang out with her teenage daughter.
And so did you learn that she had a teenage daughter when you initially met her at your house in December of 2019?
I kind of put it together, considering she wasn't Harley Hunt, and that's who I was that was the name of the person I was messaging, and she kept saying my daughter in those messages.
So
Did you have a teenage daughter?
very, very
Not
shocking.
mine.
It's been shocking all the way along, folks. In fact, I could scarcely believe my own ears in just all the rest of the parts of the trial. It's just always been something. So in Colorado Springs, Letecia Stauch, the Colorado Springs woman accused of killing her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon Stauch, now faces a new charge after a fellow inmate told authorities she was planning to escape from El Paso County prison yard. Stauch was charged with solicitation to commit escape, but she already faced a murder charge with 8 counts of crime of deliberate violence and the stepson's killing. The other inmate told investigators that Stauch in early May was planning to break out of her cell window with a broom handle, and that she had measured herself to make sure she would fit straight through the bars. The inmate said Stauch tried to enlist her help and wrote her letters about the plan as well. The inmate reported Stauch's letters and alleged plan to deputies with the El Paso County Sheriff. The inmate said she did not plan to help Stauch in this interesting escape. Stauch is set to appear in court for a status conference. She was arrested in Gannon's death on March 2nd. 16 days later, on March 18th, a road construction worker found the boy's body just off of Highway 90 in Pace, Florida, in a kind of a canal type of area. Letecia Stauch also faces charges of child abuse resulting in death and tampering with a corpse. The affidavit in the case was written February 28th and did not elaborate on how Gannon's body ended up in Florida. Letecia Stauch reported her stepson missing from their Colorado Springs home on January 27th. She told police that Gannon Stauch left on foot to play at a friend's house and go over for video games but never returned. According to the El Paso sheriff, she made the report at 7 p.m. The affidavit stated Letecia Stauch killed Gannon Stauch earlier that day after 2:15. Gannon's body was then taken into the garage and loaded into the back of the Letecia Stauch's leased Volkswagen Tiguan. She later cleaned the scene in Gannon's bedroom and then on the following evening, January 28th, drove Gannon's remains and dumped them in the area off Highway 105 and South Perry Park Road of southern Douglas County. Investigators said the Metro Crime Laboratory later determined the blood discovered in Gannon's bedroom and in the Stauch garage matched blood on a piece of particle board found near Highway 105 in South Perry Park. Before Gannon's remains were dumped off, the affidavit stated Letecia Stauch on the morning of January 28th went to pick up Albert Stauch at the Colorado Springs Airport. Albert Stauch had been on a work trip with the National Guard, conveniently for 3 days. When he arrived back home in Colorado Springs, Letecia Stauch picked him up in a Kia Rio that she had rented. She told her husband that she rented the vehicle because she was concerned about putting mileage on any kind of lease for the Volkswagen Tiguan. But investigators called the timing of the rental suspicious. Investigators discovered that Letecia Stauch's Tiguan was left in a short-term parking lot at the airport while driving the rental. On the night of January 28th, footage from the Tiguan showed it leaving Colorado Springs Airport at 7 p.m. and showed it was in the area of Highway 105 in South Park Perry. So this has really been a very, very jarring case. And sound off in the comments below. How do you feel overall in what you are discovering and starting to see? Both positive or negative, about Letecia Stauch, the case of Letecia Stauch in this terrible tragedy. Our best wishes, and our heart goes with, of course, Gannon Stauch's family, including his uncle and his grandparents, his other family, his cousins, and so forth, because of just how brutal this whole tragedy ended up being. But sound off in the comments below. We always enjoy hearing from you, most of all, first. And also indicate whether you think that perhaps someone else helped her to cover this up, whether it was Albert Stauch, that a lot of people say, or maybe maybe just someone else in the neighborhood. Thank you again. There's always more. Stauch is accused of stabbing stepson Gannon Stauch up to 18 times and then shooting him in the head. Stauch lied to investigators to try to hamper the investigation, changing her story of what happened. She claimed 2 different men had assaulted her and then abducted Gannon, and later one of them had taken Gannon after hurting himself on the official bike crash. All of her actions were purposefully designed by her to distance herself from what occurred, but defense attorney Will Cook said the gruesome details highlighted by Allen, including how Gannon was killed and the lack of motive, are proof that Stauch was insane. These are all signs and evidence of a mind and soul that is broken in fundamental ways. Cook suggested Stauch develop dissociative identity disorder as a result of being physically, emotionally, and sexually abused by her absent mother's string of partners during childhood, sometimes sleeping in a car in the driveway to escape. When she killed Gannon, she was not in her right mind, they claimed. The demons came back to haunt her. Based on surveys given to potential jurors, many were skeptical of Stauch's mental defense. He urged jurors to put aside their impulse to make someone pay for such a brutal killing and keep an open mind. I'm not telling you to like it. I'm just telling you that's the way it is. Investigators found Gannon Stauch's blood on Stauch's shoe, found her DNA on a gun linked to his death, and learned that she traveled to the Florida Panhandle shortly after he disappeared, prosecutors stated. Stauch was accused of trying to escape from jail with a broom. According to court records, she asked a fellow inmate to help her escape and get out using the broom handle in her cell wall, and that she had already measured it to make sure she could fit. So quite shocking. And as you can see, when we go here, I've been going over here just to see if anything that might be of interest could be picked up upon, And this is South Perry Park Road, where Gannon Stauch was, of course, allegedly left. His remains were left right around here. You see there's a sandstone ranch, and the trailhead. And I keep noticing, folks, there's a lot of backwoods here, a lot of areas where somebody could hide, potentially an additional weapon, or something of a very serious nature. And I always have to wonder, especially with what I've looked into, if someone wasn't, helping her cover this up in this area here, this kind of dusty dirt road and things like that, leads me to, the inevitable conclusion that there was definitely someone or someones who were helping her in some fashion, some kind of capacity maybe. But again, she declared the insanity defense, which makes it difficult to trace anybody, whether it was an ex-boyfriend, an ex-girlfriend, or somebody else who maybe would have helped her cover some of the tracks. It's always sound preposterous to me also that, they didn't have the recorded video of the exact incident. They only had some of the footage of when she went in and out of the area. Why? I mean, this area is still covered in at least outer video cameras, at least people who are paying close attention to the area. So why didn't they just retrieve some of the street cameras, things like that? Where in the world is the camera footage, right, during the trip to Florida that shows exactly where Letecia Stauch was taking Gannon a lot of times on the trip? Are they going to finally admit that into evidence? And that's a question I've asked pretty much all the way along. It's like she had another name for herself all the time, right? This Harley Hunt. Does that really sound like somebody who was completely unknown and all on their own the whole time? Harley Hunt, that reminds me of the Harley Quinn. Yeah, from the infamous Batman TV series and all those things. I just wonder, is there something we're missing here, possibly very, very significant, of somebody who had at least helped her try to conceal this crime, this brutal murder and killing? And then, she has dissociative identity disorder, so of course she can't remember any of the times that she talked to Peanut Butter, that she met more than 4 different people, apparently at their house, using the name of Harley Hunt. And, that when she went on this vacation, and it's like, what indeed is the real story? And I'd like to hear from you guys, because, of course, we always appreciate what you offer as your official feedback most of all. What are your own insights and views on the case of Letecia Stauch? Do you believe that she was just simply an insane woman who had this dissociative disorder and showed up at multiple locations under the name Harley Hunt, and there's absolutely no camera footage, apparently, of her going to these different areas or perhaps going to the hotel? Or do you think that maybe she was a little more sane than she lets on, and somebody, whoever it was, whether it's Albert Stauch or not, helped cover for Letecia Stauch when she drove his body and what remained of it over to the highway and then dumped it? Somebody that actually was almost more into the bloodlust than Letecia herself. It's certainly an interesting thing to ponder. Anyway, give your thoughts and insights. Sound off in the comments down below. Thank you. And if you liked the video, be sure to comment and subscribe, because much more is on the way as we begin our journey into the deep woods of the Lori and Chad Daybell official homicides.
And that was the harrowing yet nonetheless true story of Letecia Stauch, who murdered her own stepson after an interesting trip to the Bryan Laundry hangout known as Florida State. If you enjoyed it, be sure to comment as well. Always share your views and continue getting this out to the general public as needed. Thank you. There's always more on the way.